Morning, everyone. As mentioned, I'm with Northwest Headwater Partnership, and I'll I guess the title was sort of our journey to AIM. We'll get into a bit more details about the company, but currently where we're just into detail engineering, so we still have a long journey ahead of us, but going to kind of explain sort of the journey to where we are now and where we kind of see ourselves and sort of the troubles that we've run into with our journey. So kind of thought, so I guess sit back, put your seatbelt on, relax, and so Dick will come around with drinks, I guess. I don't know. So a little bit about NWR, because most people may not be aware. We're situated, our head office is in Calgary currently right now. Our site is in just north of Edmonton in a town called Redwater. Our refinery is called Sturgeon Refinery. Around on the streams, we're classified as a midstream. What's unique with the whole partnership, the word partnership, about 2005, or a little bit earlier, there's a company called Northwest Upgrading who had the idea that Alberta needed a refinery, and one of the big things was with diesel. So one of our main products and output, which we'll see in the next slide here, is high efficiency diesel. And how the partnership's made up is, so when we got to the downturn, they had to re-strategize around on the funding aspects to it. So the partnership is 50% Northwest Upgrading and 50% CNUL, so Canadian Natural Upgrading Limited, with the Alberta government that has a stake in it as well. And I'll get into sort of where their piece is. Briefly on sort of how the model works, there's the 50% NW and CNRL, and where the Alberta comes in is that within bitumen and kind with the lease lands, 75% of the feedstock comes into our plant, as well as 25% is coming into NWR. So our model is that we have the product consistently coming through for the next 30 years of the plant life cycle. And again, just so people understand, there's the map of Alberta there, and we're just north of Edmonton, just so people can kind of have a perspective of who we are and where we are. And I won't get into too much detail because I'm not our BD guy, but sort of a high level, as you can see, our main 4 processing units, and the main products is diesel there and how it kind of goes through. And I think these go online or something. Do you guys hand out the PowerPoints later, or so people can get a better view? So now back to why I'm here. Before I started with the company about 3 years ago, our senior executives had this vision. They wanted to do things we're cost-driven, wanted to do things a little bit differently. And some of the things that they kind of told me when I first started is that they wanted to be able to optimize on design costs, right? So let's have a more fluent deliverable, something that's the same across, so you don't have different title blocks over the place. On the P&IDs, your tanks don't have different symbology, just something easier to manage. Then they wanted to avoid the technology obsolescence and be able to enhance the deliverables so that we can use them for reuse. We're a multi-phase project. We're currently in phase 1, but one of our president's aims and strategy is to have a really quick turnaround for phase 2, and the best way to do is within the design tools. We'll have a lot of the data and the model already in place, and so that we can, and the engineers will hopefully be in place on our end on the EPC, so we can flip that quite quickly. Data handover, obviously a big one. Dick kind of mentioned that earlier about handover and the life cycle aspect of it. When we go into the operations phase, we know that our handover will be a lot more seamless because of this. We've already seen this. We've had few instances with some engineering companies where things didn't work out, and basically it was a 2-week process of bringing down, doing an audit, and setting up. And then the capture and reuse for the life cycle of the plant. So being able to enhance their completeness and accuracy, being able to reuse for phase 2 or for any as-building projects, or for all the as-building projects as we come in. We won't have to spend the money to redo it for all the multiple contractors that will be coming in when we go into as-building. So these are kind of the main objectives and things that are kind of put on the table that said, if you can meet these, we'll actually pay you. So taking that and then sort of how my team is working, these are sort of the top drivers of what we're achieving today. So standard tools and design systems. So currently we're using the SmartPlan Intergraph platform. So across the board, all the same applications, same versions, etc. Actually, we're in a centrally hosted environment, and I'll get into that in a little bit. Improved data consistency. Well, because we centrally host the environment, we're doing consistent assessment of all the data as things progress. Probably about 4 to 8 weeks, we're reviewing the model, we're reviewing the data within the P&IDs, and we're able to get in front of the non-conformances so that when you go into the turnover, we're hoping, and we're already seeing a little bit, that the majority of the non-conformances will be cleaned up by the time we get to that stage. Operations sustainment through the plant life cycle. We're able to maintain the data because we're assessing it, and when we turn over, our operations group even today is saying that they trust and they're comfortable with the engineering information going on. They know that when turnover, they won't have to do as much work around the plant walkthroughs, and they know what they're getting because I can give it to them today and they can work with it as part of their planning. One of the activities our CISU groups, or commissioning and startup group, they're already taking in our data and populating into their systems to start planning of how things are going to look when they go into commissioning. And then again, positioning ourselves for future projects. One thing is that we're trying to do a lot of forward thinking. So we've dealt with the project execution piece of it. Now, project execution is obviously different than sustainment, right? So what does the environment at NWR, what is my group's role going to play into the sustainment piece? Do I go away after 3 or 4 years, or do we continue? And there's a lot of talks within our organization of what that looks like. And these are some of the drivers and that we're all working. As we're developing our sustainment plan, these are the key things that we have in our minds: is quality of information, the access of information, so one-stop shop, so you're not digging through the boxes or going through, we have an N drive, so going through and trying to dig up that information. The sustainment of information, so being able to leverage and reuse it, and being able to use it for things like planning and safety, core meetings or pre-planning for future projects. And then again, back to the core piece, which is standardizing of all our tools. I'm a big picture guy, and just so you guys kind of have an understanding what our environment looks like. So I manage our computer integrated engineering team. I'm under the engineering discipline. And like I said, we're essentially hosted environment, and a few other companies have done a lot of the same platform, except on the 3D end. So we'll just kind of walk people through it here. The way that the big blue box is the NWR environment. What we've set up for instance, on the 3D model aspect is because our model was so big, we broke it down into individual organizations for each server, and then we've replicated for each company. That replication is consistent, so we consistently get live data back into to NWR, and we're managing 11 sites. So there's 6 companies, and then each of them have their own high-value centers. So there's 11 sites in total. What's been great with this, it's been saving on a lot of costs on travel. So a lot of the guys who would need to maybe go to Toronto or overseas, they're able to kind of keep on top of the model in-house as well, because we have all of that for them. We also do things like metrics. So on a bi-weekly basis, I provide our executives sort of progression of where we are and where the data sits. And so if there's a red flag, they can address it early as well. For Smart Plant P&ID, we have a connected work share where they push the P&IDs in. For SPY and Spell, it's a Citrix, so they tap straight into our server. We centrally host our line class library as well. So the changes will come in and we push it into our 3D environment. And then at key milestones, we then publish the data into Smart Plant Foundation, which is our hub that allows us to do data consistency, so we can make sure the tagging taxonomy is consistent across the board. Just give people perspective. This is kind of where we sit the plant. So with the 3D, this is kind of what we have today, just so people can. I'm kind of on the Sesame Street crayon level. I like pictures. And to kind of give people an idea too of the different phases, right? And to Dick, to your earlier point of the life cycle, as you can see, or as you may not be able to see, depending if you can read it, our engineering applications go consistently through right to the end of operations. What that is to populate the CMMS system with our 2D applications. Our 3D application, we're still working with the executives to find out what we want to continue to maintain as we go on. With that, the data will feed into our CMMS, and there's some, with us being an earlier, like a younger company, I guess, a younger partnership, we're still trying to figure out what the CMMS looks like to us. How is the systems going to translate and transform into the operations aspect of it? So we've done a lot of work on the earlier execution end, and now basically as of January, we've started to do a lot of planning, a lot of seeing, okay, with foundation, how does that look down the road? What's our engineering data warehouse going to look like? How does that work? So that we can sustain and support the one-stop shop for the operations team. Now to bring it in a picture that probably everyone can kind of understand and recognize, I kind of look at this graph. So we're currently we've established the engineering side. Our operations guys are happy with what we're doing. We're now working on our tag and document registry with a native file solution as well. And now we're starting to look in sort of the master data preparation. Just kind of bring it all together. And there's obviously a whole bunch of other ends that our operations and maintenance team is starting to look into. Now, some of the benefits that we've already seen today, just kind of want to go to benefits, lessons learned here. So we've been ability to perform information handover, like I've mentioned before, right? Midstream, we've seen the benefits of how quick a handover looks like. Capable of running multiple information assessments. So my team across the tools, we've automated the auditing process. So as the project progresses, we can let the contractors know of what's going on if they're non-conformant to something. Running routine metrics. So again, like I mentioned with the executives, keeping them informed of what's happening and where their project is progressing, to the point of how many P&IDs, and within the P&IDs how many equipment have been placed and so forth, so that they can do sort of a cross analysis to what they are thinking the amount of equipment need to be in the plant. Information consistency across systems. A big thing that we saw actually right in the early first 2 weeks of the project was the coordinates of the model. We were able to hit onto that right away. When we first started, people were on different levels and we were able to get in front of things early. Central set of line classes. We're managing our line class library so we can control the amount of line classes that the plant will have. and then using our information to plan ahead. Now, sort of the last slide to wrap things up here. Obviously, this hasn't been easy. It's been 3 years of a lot of hard work from a lot of people, and I've heard a consistent message through this whole conference, and it's buy-in from the right people. If you don't have your senior executives buying into this, then you might as well pack up your bags and go home. And making sure that everyone's committed through the rough times. It's not always going to be easy. There's going to be issues within contractors, because essentially being the owner, I guess you could deem it as being in the way or in the middle of it. We're in the business, and we are managing and centrally hosting it, and having their support and gain and understanding the vision is a huge thing, which makes sure that the constant thing that we always ask is, are we doing the right thing? Is it fit for purpose, or is it too big for the size of our company? And then the educate and communicate constantly, making sure that everyone's aware of what our plan is, our strategy, where we want to head. And I go to I'm actually going to Madrid next week to one of our companies, and one of the engineering companies, and it's making sure that they understand why we're doing this and why we're going through these activities. Making sure that obviously the solid processes and documentation are in place, so people, well, it looks like you're organized, and they know that you have a plan and we can run with the plan. And a lot of these items, you can speak as much as you want until you're blue in the face, but if you're not actioning and you're not actually performing, then you're toast. A lot of the guys work a lot of hard hours within my team, so that when we say something that we mean it and we proceed with it. That way it builds a relationship with the operations, which is the most important piece of my end. Is I look at two bosses, my VP of engineering and our operations manager. And making sure that you understand the whys and the drivers, so full circle. Making sure that we consistently go back to why we're doing it and why we're driving to do this. So.